philosophy books often have a problem that you don't know what's inside just from the title. This is often a problem with Proclus, who wrote many commentaries on Plato, and all that you can know from the title of the book is what book of Plato's he's talking about. But you don't actually know what's the philosophical meat there. What are the concepts he's introducing? What are the arguments? What are the main ideas? Therefore, I've decided to do a series of short videos on Proclus's books and what's inside them, to give a little peek into their content. I'm going to start by talking about Proclus's commentary on the Timaeus. The Timaeus is a dialogue of Plato's which contains a narrative account of the creation of the world. Right? It talks about how the world was created by a divine craftsman, or demiurge, who took a pre-existent mass of chaotic motions and set it in order. And he set it in order according to a paradigm, a model that he used and that he knew through nous, through intellectual intuition, so to speak. And he used this purely intellectual paradigm to create the physical, perceptible world that we see. So the Timaeus is mostly about physics, and Proclus's commentary is also about physics. When Proclus says that a dialogue is about a certain subject matter, he means this in a far stronger way than we do when, for instance, we say that the Phaedo is about the immortality of the soul, or the Republic is about justice. For Proclus, this means that every detail of the dialogue has to be concerned with the subject matter. It means that with every literary choice, with every character, with every setting detail, Plato is telling us something about the subject matter. And that means that in the case of the Timaeus, every character and everything discussed in the dialogue is going to be about physics. Now, why is this important? Because the dialogue doesn't start immediately with the narrative of the creation of the world. It starts actually with Socrates giving a recapitulation of what the ideal city is like, that is close to what's described in the Republic, and then with an account of the myth of Atlantis, right? The myth of a prehistoric conflict between Athens and Atlantis. And for Proclus, these initial parts are also about physics. Now, what I'm going to describe in this video is just what's come out as the first volume of Proclus's commentary on the Timaeus in the Cambridge translation. I don't have that in print, but here is the 5th volume. That's what these volumes look like, and you can see that from the cover you don't really know what's inside. Right? This one just says also Volume 5, Proclus on Time and the Stars, but it doesn't really give you a sense of what's up. So I'm going to be talking about the first volume, which is mostly about the myth of Atlantis, but actually there are 3 different subjects here. The first subject discussed when Proclus opens his commentary is, first of all, what is the dialogue about? As I said, it's about physics, the study of the natural world. So this leads Proclus to discuss what nature is, and that's a very interesting discussion that Mariam and Martijn has devoted a whole volume to this issue. And for Proclus, nature is the immanent rationality of bodies, right? It's the rationality that belongs to bodies, that if you destroyed the body, that rational structure would be destroyed as well. But it's what actually shows that rationality isn't something just imposed from outside, which you might get from Plato's creation account, right? Oh, look at this, it's this artisan taking chaotic matter and imposing order on it. No, actually, nature is this principle of order that's immanent to bodies. And the idea of nature is how we explain that order just doesn't come from without, and actually is something that belongs to bodies, and that their organization isn't something that does violence to them, but rather brings them into their own. And so he starts off with this idea of what is physics and what is nature. That's the first subject. Then he goes on to talk about this ideal city and this account of the ideal city that Socrates gives in the Timaeus. Now, for Proclus, this is going to be about physics. And how does he make this about physics? Well, for Proclus, Plato's ideal city is the natural world, is the world we live in. We live in the ideal city, in the best of all cities. It's governed by gods, and they delegate their decisions to spirits to carry out, and we and all the animals are down here, somewhat analogous to the working classes, the producing classes in Plato's Republic. And so Proclus therefore goes into great detail working out this analogy. So here we can say that we get Proclus' Cosmopolitics, right? He understands the physical world, the natural world, as a political world, right? It's a city of gods and men, to use the Stoic phrase. And then after these two issues, what is physics and the cosmopolitics of the world, he then gets into the myth of Atlantis. Now, what is this myth for Proclus? It's also about the natural world. And what does it show about the natural world? Well, it's a symbol about how everything in the natural world is composed by opposing principles. Principles of order and principles of chaos, principles of unity and principles of multiplicity, right? And the myth is supposed to teach us about how these principles interact and how ultimately order triumphs over chaos, and that's why we live in an ordered world. So this is the subject of what's the first volume of the Commentary on the Timaeus in the Cambridge translation. It's not short. This is equivalent to about 200 pages of Greek, right? And these are the main subjects, and it's a great book to study if you want to know more about Proclus's method of interpretation, how he uses analogy, if you have a particular interest in Atlantis, and also if you're interested in subjects about cosmopolitics, about thinking about the natural world in a political way, and about analogies between social order and natural order. I will be making future videos about the other parts of Proclus Commentary and giving a sneak peek at what's there to study in these.